Flirties, the topic on the show today is rejection. And our guest for this conversation is Sarah Rice, a licensed marriage and family therapist, podcast host, and reality TV alumni. You heard that right. She a triple threat, y'all. And with Sarah, we'll be exploring all the ways rejection happens in dating and how hard yet important it is to say no. We'll also be asking the question, which I know you've heard before, is rejection really redirection? Will the one just appear when you least expect it? I know you've asked this question to yourself before. I know I have. We'll also be talking about how you can process through a breakup. What do you do with a broken heart? I won't gatekeep any longer. Let's get to the Flirtation theme song and into the show. Come on, Flirty. Let's do this.
I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. Hello, my name is Benjamin. I'm the flirt coach and a gay Libra. Everyone has an inner flirt.
Hey, Flirty.
Live, laugh, flirt.
Work the flirt.
Work the flirt. Delulu is the Salulu. Expert on the flirt.
Hey, Flirty. There's always another flirt.
Everyone has an inner flirt. Get out of your head and into the flirt.
All right, Flirties, on the show today, we're going to be talking about capital R, rejection, in all of its various forms. This is a common experience we all go through dating, and it happens in quite a few different ways. On the show to help us with this conversation, Sarah Rice, welcome to Flirtations.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here with you.
I am so excited too. This is, we were chatting just a moment ago before hitting record. I did an interview for your podcast.
Yes. You were a guest on my podcast, This Changes Everything, and you gave wonderful advice on how to flirt better because we all need it. And so I'm here to return the favor.
We did talk about flirting, didn't we?
We sure did. I hope so, somewhere in there. Somewhere in our chit chat.
It was all about flirting. And I send the flirties to that episode and to your podcast quite often. I've included it in my newsletter. Yes, I have.
Oh, well, I'm happy to be here. So like a little bit about me, I'm an associate marriage and family therapist. So a lot of the work that I do besides hosting a podcast is working with individuals and couples and families on how to have better relationships and how to achieve their goals and navigate just like being a person, which is real hard to do. So I'm here to help.
It's a challenge. And that's why we appreciate you. I appreciate you. I've gotten so much good just insight and information and knowledge from your podcast. And honestly, what sparked the sort of the idea for this episode was an episode of your podcast dealing with breakups.
Yes. Oh, well, I mean, it's something that I'm all too familiar with, I feel like.
What do you mean?
Yeah, well, I'm currently single. I feel like I've had all what makes me they always say this, you'll be a great therapist because of the experiences you've had. But I've been on all sides of it. I've been married, I've been divorced, I've been in relationships where I lived with my partner and ones where we didn't cohabitate. Like I feel like I've tried it all. But recently I was in a relationship for about 2 years and just recently, no, maybe not. Now it's been probably about 4 months or so. I'm single. And so now I'm doing the whole like date myself thing for a while.
Yes, that's so important. And that's what
I'm practicing flirting.
Yeah, because that inner flirt is right there. It's wanting to make connections.
Yeah. So I'm doing that. I'm looking at it as making connections with no expectations.
No expectations attached, just there about the genuine expression of interest. Let's share some energy, have a moment, make a connection, learn something new about someone else, maybe about yourself. Yeah. So much fun. So much fun. And we'll talk about also this aspect of rejection where you then get to date yourself. But like rejection in and of itself, I want to go ahead and at the top of this episode, so we're going to be getting into all the different forms of rejection. It could be breakups, it could be ghosting, it could be even a misconnection, it could be the self-rejection you put yourself through out there dating and flirting, where like I see this happen all the time in the flirt, where you can't get out of your head and you're going ahead and you're making an assumption, oh, the other person must be thinking this about me, they must not like me. And so you're having that self-criticism judgment for yourself, which is going to make it very hard to flirt.
Oh yeah. You got to get out of your head and into the present moment.
100%.
This is like do as I say, not as I do.
Same. I'm a teacher. I don't always do.
We practice. It's a practice.
Exactly. So let's offer the flirties and everyone listening today a reframe on rejection, just like what that even means, because it's such a harsh, like even the letters in it, hard consonants. I'm not a fan.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah,
100%. I say this in sessions all the time. We need to change the word rejection. That's like if I went out to get ice cream with you and we were choosing our favorite flavor. And you love pistachio. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to get pistachio. I'm going to get chocolate instead. I am not rejecting pistachio. That's like a crazy thing to say. Well, if I'm rejecting all these other 30 flavors, I'm just going to have chocolate. No, it's just like a preference that I have in that moment. That's what I feel like. So I try to approach relationships and interactions with people in the same way. And then it helps so that you don't internalize those feelings of rejection as strongly, because just like, oh, I'm just not their flavor of ice cream in this particular moment.
Yeah. A great reframe right at the top of the show that oftentimes it comes down to choices, but how can we also then not take them super personally? Like I asked Flirtstagram Flirt Talk, and sure enough, they came through with the question of how to not take rejection personally. But before we get there, playing in this space of reframing rejection a little bit. And so we've all heard rejection is redirection. And I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I really love those like sliding door kind of ideas where somebody's saying no to you in some way or something not coming to fruition in the exact way that you wanted it to go may lead to something else that's really great and wonderful. And anytime that you experience rejection, in a way, it gives you this grit. It gives you this resilience that I think helps to build confidence. And the thing that people really want, that people say all the time, oh, if only I were more confident, if only I felt confident. Well, it is through experiencing those quote unquote rejections, if you want to call them that, that we gain the toughness and the strength to be able to let them kind of roll off our back. And then we have the confidence to put ourselves out there more. And it's through those actions that we find the people that become our closest friends and our partners and all that. But you gotta go through a little bit of that, like resilience building, grit building stuff, which sucks. I totally get that. I say all this like as somebody, there is nothing worse than a broken heart. I really do think it's like the ultimate kind of grieving, because it's grieving like that's like open-ended. The what ifs, it's not like they're just gone and it's final. There's always this feeling of like, maybe if I were different, maybe if, it's that bartering that we do in our minds.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I always think about, and like, this is what's been hard for me in breakups, whether they're mutual or not, it's like they can sometimes come to a point of finality relatively quickly. Even if there was maybe a buildup towards it, the actual conversation or the breakup happens. And then where does the energy behind that connection go? Where does the love go? Like I find it
Where does that go?
it's like it's displaced. It's still sort of tethered. It's still looking to attach, to connect with the person, the people that were there. And that's what I feel like is the hardest thing for me about breakups that it has been in the past as someone that's single now, and that I struggle with when I answer this question in my videos, on lives, calls, doesn't matter. It's like where does the love go? Like, where does the energy go that was behind what was perhaps a very close and intense relationship?
Oh, it's so hard. That part, I know, is hard for me, because it feels like you want so bad to know what the other person's thinking and what they're feeling, everything. And I heard once that the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. So I try to get to that point where I'm just like, oh, I'm indifferent about this, but that's so hard, because I know there's so many feelings. And
so it's what you can do, and it's like you got to be in that space of discomfort, being able to feel the pain, but hopefully, or feel the hurt, like whatever emotions are coming up, hopefully having some support, or feeling like you can reach out, not isolating. Like, this is something I know I would do. It's just feeling like I have to go through it alone. But even just like calling up a friend, a family member, a therapist, a coworker, anybody, like having that conversation, and sometimes just like talking it out, crying it out, just getting it out.
Yeah. You know what I tried? Because I noticed that through all the breakups, through divorces, through everything, the people who have been there for me have always been my friends. And they're always like the same friends who are just like there for me forever. So through this last breakup, I thought about the amount of energy that I put into those early stages of a relationship where I'm trying real hard to like, I'm like, we're giving them our best, and we're like giving them all of our energy.
Yes.
And I'm giving all this energy. I give so much of that energy to people who often, maybe they're not necessarily deserving of all that love yet. And that's one of the things I work on with my therapist. I like pour love into people who are like, aren't ready to reciprocate. So instead, I decided to redirect that love that I normally would be pouring into maybe like, I don't know, the early stages of dating somebody to my friends. And I showed up I would, not like, oh my God, Sarah gets a trophy for being the best friend, but I'm just like giving you some ideas here that, I had a friend who went to Europe. And so like when she came home, I like put a little sign up like welcome home, and gave her some flowers, or like, would bring some friends some flowers, or pick them up from the airport, or do the same acts that I would normally do for the people that I date, but instead do them for the people who have been showing up for me. And let me tell you, that felt so much more rewarding and so much more like fulfilling. And they loved it. Like, okay, that took me way too many years to figure out that I need to be doing more of that. And I mean, my friends will say, oh, but you do take good care of us, or whatever. But it was the energy like where I wanted love. And before I was putting it into or putting it towards people who maybe weren't ready to give it back. So now I want love, but I'm sending it to people who are like, see your love, I'll accept it. Let me give it right back to you. Do you need a ride to the airport? Come stay at my house. Whatever. Here's some flowers. It's the best.
I think that's going to be really helpful, because one thing that can help for sure is exactly what you just said, in the space of if you're feeling rejected, or in that space of hurt, whatever's coming up, is looking at the relationships that are fulfilling to you. And this is a theme that I've played with in my content some, is like, yes, it's one thing to see your relationships, the connections that are serving you, but also how are you serving them? Like, it goes vice versa. And coming back to that word that you mentioned of fulfillment, and it can hurt when you felt like a connection or relationship was personally fulfilling, but when it ends, going back to what is ultimately those people, places, and things that are fulfilling for you, calling your power back to you, as I like to say, and then reframing. Like, this is something I learned from my grandma, is that the universe it has no answers for the what if questions, for the necessarily even the why questions or the when questions. So like, if you're in like, when will I have experience love again? Or like, what if this had been different? Or why did this happen? I mean, you, depending on how you're feeling, who you're talking to on any given day, you could get a different answer to those questions every
That's
single
a good
time.
Point. Right.
So asking more specific questions I love playing with what questions. So what do I need? Like, what am I feeling? Right? Like, what can I do to
gives
best
you more
support
action.
myself?
You can do things with that. Why? I can't do anything with the why because I can't change the past and I can't make predictions about what's going to happen in the future because I can't control that.
Nope.
So what can I do right now? What do I need? What am I feeling?
Mm-hmm.
That gives you at least some action that you can take.
Yes, it gives you something to, like you just said, act on, which is sometimes the thing that we need the most when we can't get out of our head. We feel like we're spiraling. Like this is, we're answering one of the questions here from Flirtagram, and that is, word for word, how to reset after a rejection spiral. I think it's to focus on the what. What can you do?
What can I do? What am I feeling? What do I need in this moment that's separate from that partner?
Yes.
You know, that because, I need them. Well, okay. Not what we're looking for.
No.
What do you need for you?
Yeah.
And that's the better we get at taking care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that helps so many things. It helps teach other people how to care for us.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it so we can navigate through those tough times better. And we learn like, everybody has a different way that they like to be cared for. And often we just wait around for other people to care for us in the exact way we want to be cared for. And then we're upset when they're not doing it, not doing it right. So if instead, and often we don't even know the exact way that we want to be cared for. We just know when we don't like it. So use that time to really explore yourself and what you need to be cared for and what feels good. You know, you might find that it's something different than you thought it was.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned at the start here, in a period of dating yourself, which can honestly be so much fun.
It is so much fun. I went camping solo for the first time by myself. Because I had always relied on partners. I always said, like, I have all my camping stuff. I love camping. I love being outdoorsy. And I wanted to find partners. I would often find partners that were the ones that helped kind of motivate me to go outdoors. So I wanted to do these things with. I'm like, I don't need to wait for the partner with the off-roading vehicle to like take me to the campsite. I'm going to go by myself. And I did it. And I pitched that tent and I lit that fire. And it was so fun. And I had this like moment where I was so giddy where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm having like a sleepover with just me. It's so much fun. I get to do everything I do. I loved it.
Yeah, and I can relate to that too. I've had experiences getting out of relationships where it's like, you're with a partner who doesn't like, it's just a hard no on certain things. Or like you never got to do certain things. Or like you sort of maybe had to live your life in a specific way to meet their needs. You're making all those compromises, and then it's like I remember I was in a long relationship with a guy who he didn't like the beach because it was sandy.
Oh.
And, like the sun and, it's a little wet, sometimes it's windy, like there's some external factors. I get it. Looking at the beach from the comfort of a porch or something like that. But I'm like, put me on the beach.
There.
Yes. And so for the duration of that relationship, great guy, but we only went to the beach one time.
That's stealing away some of your joy.
Oh my gosh, that was one of the first things I did after and we were even close, like living fairly close to the beach at the time. You better believe I was going every freaking weekend after that.
I think in relationships, there is a level of compromise, but we shouldn't compromise on those things that bring us joy and fulfillment.
I know.
I think like the right partner would suck it up and get some sand in their toes and would I think they would.
I feel the same. And this is, I was so young at the time, and this was just my, I think, inexperienced dating and feeling like, oh, I guess this is what compromise looks like, or, and so like
compromise, but not sacrifice.
I know. And I was we went into sacrifice territory.
Yeah. I've been there. Yeah.
This is such a good way to open the show. And I want to spend a little bit more time with some reframes around rejection, as I think we're talking about it in terms of choice.
Mhm.
If you are the one that has been rejected, or maybe you're doing that to someone else, it ultimately is about choice. But no matter on which side of the coin you're on, you still get to make a choice about where you pour your energy into, how you
Yeah.
connect, what you want
Yeah.
to do, what actions you can take. And something else that has helped me is, yes, reframing rejection as redirection, choice as redirection, but also sometimes that experience of redirection can be relief. Like,
Yeah.
ooh, like I
Yeah.
think we've had that experience where a breakup, or even, it could be those first few dates, just something that doesn't develop into something long term. And we're like, okay, that's
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. It comes with a mixed bag of feelings, right? We can
Yeah.
have a whole bunch. There could be a little bit of relief and a little bit of sadness. Like
Yeah.
grief is weird like that. And
Mm-hmm.
any kind of loss is grief.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to grieve like what could have been, but maybe
Yeah.
in thinking about what could have been, it opens the door for what else might be.
Mm-hmm. For sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, thank
And
goodness things didn't work out with the guy who
yeah.
didn't love the beach, because I really actually want to be with somebody who loves
Uh-huh.
the beach. Yeah, I know that feeling.
I need my Aquaman. That's
Yeah.
what I do. Another reframe that I've played with that I really like is that rejection is also clarity. Like,
Yeah.
it gives you, if you're, because sometimes when we know a relationship or connection isn't really meant for us, but we just like, it's so hard to let go. And ultimately it happens. It's like, okay, now like I have an answer.
Yeah, you could look at the past with a different lens that can maybe
Yeah.
help see some of the ways that you were, I don't know, maybe self-abandoning
Yeah.
or whatever it may be. But
Hmm.
we tend to have that positive mutual projection where we look at the other person, especially in that
Hmm.
honeymoon phase, which it lasts about a year, really,
Mm.
where you're
Yeah.
like, okay, I see just the best of this person.
Yeah.
And then you're going to keep seeing the best of that person as the best version of them helps to create your vision of the future. But
Hmm. Hmm.
when that vision of the future disappears,
Hmm.
then your view of the person also can sometimes change.
Yeah. Yeah. The honeymoon period lasts that long?
It kind of does.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, it takes about a year before you start to really see who a person is in that
Yeah.
way. And I'd say 2 years
You're
is
right.
like the
Yeah.
mark to really know.
Yeah. That is so
Yeah.
wild. That is,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
longer than you think.
It
Right.
is longer than you think.
Which is good, which is like
True.
wonderful, It,
Mhm.
like, and we want to keep that up. But it's just important to know that it may feel really comfortable and may feel really authentic, but it's
Mhm.
hard to really know. It's because it takes that long to go through a lot of the things that we go through as people, to see the range of emotions
Right.
and um, I don't know, things come out like,
True. Yeah, how they're
yeah,
gonna just act in different situations. It gives
yeah,
you a
yeah,
chance to, in that honeymoon period, 1 to 2 years, someone could experience, I don't know, a job loss, or like something
right.
happens, like a
A
big
death in
time
the
life stressor.
family, a
Yeah.
big life stressor. It's hard if
Yeah.
there's no life stressor. And if if there's
That is
nothing that
true.
happens, then and like both people kind of need to see that, maybe a vacation together or something where you're out
Oh,
of town together,
oh,
having to, those
oh,
kind of things, just
yeah.
navigate.
Traveling together for
Yeah.
sure.
You gotta try life together. My
Yeah.
mom
One
would
of
always
my
say everybody has fun at Disneyland, but who do you get along with in traffic on the ride home?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so good.
So I'm like,
That's
oh,
so good.
okay. Who do I want to be in traffic with? That's the person.
Oh my gosh, not me.
A lot of people, the answer is no. So
yeah. That's
Yeah, one dating tip I've given is the day trip test, which is like this more for that early phase of dating. But, after you've been on those first few dates, maybe a month or two, something like that, just doing something within, like a few hours, half a day's drive at most.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see, like, all right, how's it like to travel with someone, be in that traffic, right? What kind of, how do they act like when you're sort of just in a car together for a while?
Right. Maybe when people are tired or hungry or, we're not trying to like put people through tests, but it's important to just experience, relationship, being a person stuff together.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And I've already determined my day trip test will be here in North Carolina is, I believe it's the Thomasville chair. And it's the largest chair in the world, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's a big furniture industry here. Yeah.
They would probably have to be game for that. They'd have to know how to make fun out of something that maybe somebody else would be like, why are we visiting a chair?
Right.
And there's a lot of room for play in that. But I like that. Mine's camping. So
perfect.
There you go.
There you go. So we both have our day trip test, and we're going to get some snacks on the way.
Yeah.
We're going to get some road candy.
Yeah.
A playlist. Yeah.
Yeah. I like all that.
So good. All right. I really wanted to start off the episode talking about just what rejection is, offering a reframe on that, the different ways to look at it and view it. And now getting into some of the different types of rejection that we might experience, different types of choosing we might experience out there dating. So let's talk about ghosting.
Oh, yes. I feel like I have definitely experienced that. I don't think I'm somebody who has been a ghoster. And I usually am clear with the communication. And I find, because that's like that resilience building. Like every time I am able to be clear about my feelings in a relationship, I find, oh my God, that was easier than I thought it was going to be, or that went well, or man, I'm so glad I don't have to still be in that relationship. I didn't want to keep dating that person. And I start like enjoying it. So I tend to be pretty good at cutting things off, but I have been the recipient of ghosting. And I think in like one of the biggest ways, I was living with a guy during the whole pandemic, and I thought this was somebody who was not good at communicating clearly, because I thought we had a great relationship. And then we went to like renew the lease, and he was like, I don't want to be together. And it was like somebody, and then he just disappeared and like blocked me on Venmo, like blocked me on Spotify, things I didn't know you could even block people on. And I was like, wow, he's doing really good at the no contact thing. But this guy just like disappeared. And then one of my friends said that she saw him on that Don't Date This Guy LA thing on Facebook. So I was like, damn, I knew I was right about him. But still.
Your intuition was right.
I was like, I knew it. But yeah, that was like, it was, I felt like I got ghosted from like it was just like the rug pulled out from under me, and I had no explanation of why. There was nothing. I had to just accept that I have no clue what I did, what happened, what he didn't like, what went wrong. And that was one of the hardest relationships to recover from, because I wanted those why questions answered, and I did not have the answer to why. Oh, that is my brain went crazy. So I took a trip to Costa Rica, because I was like, I got to get away, and like went to the jungle and I was cleared my mind.
Yeah. What are some ways that you were able to, just manage the emotions of that experience?
Okay. So this is something that I talk to clients about all the time. This is something that I work on myself. And the biggest thing with any of this rejection, with any breakup, with anything you go through, is what is the meaning that you are making from the experience? What is the story that you are telling yourself from the situation? Because often that is not accurate at all. That is a bunch of BS. We tend to tell ourselves, I'll never find love again. I'm the worst. There's something wrong with me. That I'm what is the one I'm like a broken toy, like nobody's going to love me kind of thing. We go through all of that's the meaning that we make. This is the story, the meaning that I derived from this experience. The meaning is I'm worthless. Whoa, no, it's not. So we have to look at like the meaning. Well, this means that this wasn't the person who was for me. This means that this person wasn't ready to meet me at the place that I'm at right now.
Yeah.
This person had different wants and needs and ideas of where this relationship was going.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all manageable. Those are things we can work with.
Yep.
I'm a loser and I'm never going to find love again. Come on.
Yeah, I know. But I know I've so been there. And then I also will think
all of us do this.
Yeah, it's so true. It's universal human experience. And I've thought it's also like this, it's not just that I won't find love again, but like that was my person. Like this was the person that just could like sort of fix everything kind of thing. Like they were the best complement to my personality. And when you are in those relationships where you sort of may yourself take a back seat and they become your social life too. And it's like, so you can lose more than just a partner. You can lose, oh my God.
Your connection to everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
everything.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's really, really hard.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough.
To pick yourself back up after those feelings is hard to do. But they're just thoughts, and thoughts and feelings are not facts.
Right. Yeah.
They are just thoughts, and we can change those. And that's why it helps. I'm a big fan of writing things down. I have it like within, I think I even have it in that box right behind me. But I will write down feelings when I go through a breakup to talk to the wise mind that knew it was the right thing to do, or the wise mind that maybe it's like after you're done talking with friends and you're like in that moment, we're like, yeah, you know what? That guy was treating me like shit. Write it down, because that wise mind you is who we need to listen to. And when we're in that place where we have made incorrect meaning from the situation, and we're in that like, I don't want to call it the weaker mind, but I'll call it like the survival brain that's like maybe a younger version of us. It sometimes feels like a teenager, like a little kid who like, that's the one that's like, I'll take whatever love. I don't care. Like, I'm not worthy of anything else. This is the only person for you. Nope. Can't listen to them. That person needs the lesson from the wise mind when they're feeling like that. So write it down. Write it down and go back and read it over and over and over.
Yeah. I think that's a really, really good tip, because when we're going through a ghosting or really any kind of connection that ends, it's like I'll speak for myself. I have the tendency to only focus on what was good. Only the good times, only the highs, never the lows, always like, the best of what was happening, and not the times that I sacrificed instead of compromised. Or like I did.
I'm going to see if I have it. I'm going to just look.
Yeah.
I think it's right here. It is. I knew it.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
I have it right here. I knew it. You are a reasonable person. You were once filled with joy in every place but your relationship. And you were asked and were promised respect and adherence to boundaries, and were let down time and time again. So I would just write these things to myself, and like over and over. And then I wrote a big list of wants, all these things. And I just go back to this and read, this is the things you wanted. This is what you weren't getting. Yeah. And I wrote craft love from heartbreak, compassion from change, grace from disappointment, and courage from failure. And there you go.
Good. Yes. Write it out.
Yeah. That was when I was going through my divorce, and I was like, these are and grad school, which really helps when you're going through grad school as a mental health professional and a divorce. My gosh. It's really helpful. Yeah. You're doing a lot of processing.
You needed some time for release, for sure.
Yeah. Well, that was it. That was why I knew I had to get divorced, because I was in grad school and learning and then working in a clinic and working with couples and telling them one thing and then going home and doing the exact opposite. And like, I'm not being authentic, and I'm not feeling how I want to feel, and I don't have healthy communication, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I am living a lie, and I had to do it. Yeah. So it's hard though. I had to, in a way, reject a life that other people were like, wow, on paper, this is like so great. This is so wonderful. You like, it was, I didn't have to work if I didn't want to. It was like, I had to reject a life that would have been easy in some ways, but not on my heart.
Mm,
And I couldn't do it.
That's such a good point. And I'm glad you said that, because this is a part of this whole conversation too, is kind of that realignment, that redirection piece, that clarity piece. It's like, yeah, I've been in relationships too where it's like they just, you're not coming from this place of authenticity. They're not really in alignment with who you are. You're not showing up the way you want to. But maybe you have on kind of the storybook life in some ways, or like some things that you always imagined you would have in your life. Maybe there's some comfort there. There's some security and safety there in some ways, and starting to balance all of that out of, but if I'm not fulfilled inside, like ultimately that's
right.
I know.
Like that's why you have to live a life for yourself, not what you think people want you to be, or what looks good on Instagram or whatever. Because you got to listen to your heart.
You do.
I mean, I'm a firm believer in that. You know, I think everybody's heart tells them different things. So for some people, you know, I have a friend who said for her, love was resting her head on a pillow and knowing that everything was taken care of. And so she looked at being financially secure as like, and I looked at love in a different way. Yeah. And so,
that's a good point too. Yeah. What does love mean and look like to you? That's a good question to write down. Yeah. Right. If you're not driving, pause the show right now and take.
I do that exercise with all my clients who are looking for relationships. We go through, what does love look like? What does it really mean to you? What would it look like on the day-to-day? And getting a good idea of that helps you get better at like vetting people and then being okay when rejection does happen, because it's not like they're rejecting, or it's not you rejecting that person. It's you rejecting a life that isn't aligned with what you ultimately want and who you are. And I'm going to reject that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get out of your life that's not mine.
There you go. That might be the soundbite. That was for pro. That was so good. I think that's just such a good, another really, really good reframe for thinking about this whole rejection piece. And like, I'm glancing at the questions now of just like, I mean, this one came through. I get it all the time, is how to not take rejection personally. And I think there's your answer.
Yeah. That's the life that's not mine.
Yeah.
And,
so good.
And it could feel like I can see somebody's mind in those places. I've been there being like, but that life was mine, but it's not yours if the other person isn't feeling that and it's reciprocated, because isn't that what you ultimately want? And I always play the game. What would 90-year-old Sarah say? Because 90-year-old Sarah would be like, you don't want to be with somebody who doesn't want to be with you. Move on.
Right.
90-year-old Sarah has, all the wisdom in the world. And usually our 90-year-old selves do. If you think about, it's like your grandma that you love so much, you know? It's like, what would old version of us do? What do we care about? I care about way different things. I don't care about how tall he is. Get out of here with that. I don't care about any of that, because 90-year-old me is like, please, we're all shrinking anyway. I don't care. Like, can he still play bridge with me on the porch? Great.
Some mahjong. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm looking for.
I'm taking, honestly, yes.
Right.
These are some fantastic takeaways for me personally. I'm going to answer this question about, what does love mean to me? What does it really like look and feel like? Getting really super clear on that. And what would 90-year-old me say to myself?
Yeah.
In some dating situations. Yeah.
Absolutely. That one's a big one, because then it cuts through a lot of the superficial stuff.
Yeah.
And it gets to like what we really care about, what we really want at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to, spend one more moment on the ghosting piece. It's like so many of us, I mean, myself, have certainly been ghosted, have done the ghosting, right? I've done it. I truly have. And one of the hardest parts of the whole ghosting situation in dating is like, it's almost become permissible. I'm kind of using air quotes here, where it's
Yeah.
like, you know, it was done to me, so then I'm going to do it back. Or it sort of like has really woven its way into the dating
Yeah.
landscape. I think with just the way we're meeting in digital communication, the dating apps has just, it's become commonplace. And there's sometimes when I think, you know, if you made a match on an app, any dating app, and you had a few, I don't know, a few back and forths, and it just one or both of you dropped it off, like that's not
Right.
a ghosting. Like we're not, that happens, especially if you're making a lot of matches. But the part about ghosting that is always just, it's like someone else making a decision that truly impacts your life without your awareness, your knowledge, your permission. You had no idea.
Right. That feeling. And I think there's no worse feeling than feeling like the fool.
Oh my gosh.
That is I hate it. I was on reality television, and that is the role I played on there all the time, where I'm like, oh God, always the fool. And like, you know, just but I want to say what that says about a person, because it does hurt. And it is awful, but it says that you trust people. It says that you like are hoping that there's going to be good communication. And I don't think people should stop being like that. You know, I think the only thing that we can do is model what better and be different in how we communicate to not make ghosting so commonplace. And the relationships I have been in, you know, dating here and there for a couple of dates, or, you know, where things are getting maybe a little serious, and then you know, we decide, you know, thanks, but no thanks. They've always been really, really receptive and appreciative. And so have I. And that's the thing to remember. You know, I had one guy who said, you know, after this, like, I know you're like breaking up, or we're like saying goodbye and everything, but I think I'm going to keep dating therapists. And I was like, yeah, that's the best compliment you could give me.
Truly.
That was great, you know, because therapists will communicate clearly to you. And he's like, I like this better. And he probably isn't somebody who was good at communicating directly like that, and he was never going to do it. But I hope that I showed him how that could be done, and gave him the language. So I think that we should just like change that and be better, and like,
I agree. You know. Yeah. And you can be the change. And I'm so glad you said that, because more often than not, just in my experience and client experience too, people love the clarity of, hey, like, I'm not feeling this, or like whatever, however you want to phrase it, but just giving someone that, like, okay, like, we're not going to go into ghosting territory here. Usually they're very receptive and respectful and thankful.
Yeah. And I got to say, I'm not the greatest dater. I'm saying this like, oh, look at how good I am. But please, there's a great collection of guys out there, I'm sure, who's like, she is so fucking annoying, and she drives me crazy, and she did X, Y, and Z, and she interrupts like you wouldn't believe, and her ADHD is so. Please, I could get into that whole conversation too, but we're going to go through my highlight reel for this one.
I think that'll be really helpful. I mean, I've had, not every guy I've dated would be like, oh, Benjamin, he's fantastic. He's like,
maybe some of them, but
some of them, some of them might have some choice words. And then the last thing I'll say about ghosting. So I'm a fan of using some assertive language and communication, just so you can get that closure for yourself. Because ultimately, the ghosting itself could be the closure. But like recently, I went through a slow ghosting situation, matched on an app, few messages back and forth, moved it to text, set the date, had the first date follow-up was great. And then here comes the slow ghost behavior. Like, it's, you know, the pacing of the communication was not matching what was happening on the app, which isn't, like, that's kind of a beige-ish flag. I think it's normal for the communication on an app. It's brand new. You're looking to hopefully maybe set a date. But then it was like, you know, just days in between texts. And then there was emergencies, and there was lots of apologies and excuses and delays for the second date. I mean, writing on the wall. Right. This had slow ghost all over it. So what I did, to get that closure, I sent him a text like, hey, name, person. I I value more consistent communication as I'm trying to get to know someone that's really important to me. It doesn't seem like you're interested in going on a second date. At this point, I wish to stop communicating, but wish you all the best. Like, best of luck in your dating life.
Beautiful.
Yeah. That's what I said.
That is clear communicate. How'd you feel after that?
Oh, I felt so good. I just sent it as a text. It did not need to be. This was only after one day.
It didn't need to be. You don't have to say that face to face. That was perfect.
Yeah.
And what will happen is you'll get one of two responses.
Mm-hmm.
One, he'll go, oh, okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm kind enough. You'll get confirmation of the ghosting behavior. Or you'll get somebody who goes, I don't want to lose you. I'm going to step my game up. I got to change. I'll be different, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. That I say approach still cautiously because kind of what you see is what you get in those first, but it'll tell you about the work that they're willing to put in.
Truly, truly. And this guy, he did all over a third option. He said nothing. I know, right?
Okay. Nothing. Well, third option is option number 1B because that's like tells you everything.
Yeah. And it was, and this had only been a couple days and like, this wasn't kind of thing where you stop talking for 2-3 weeks. Like that's when it gets kind of like, oh, well, like you kind of both have maybe perhaps ghosted one another. But when you're in that early phase and, you're seeing these patterns, these behaviors show up, or you're just simply just not feeling it rather than ghosting, just using, I love the anti-ghost text because it's going to give you just closure. So you can just be able to move on. And I was sad for a couple days. I genuinely liked him. First date was good. It was fun talking to him. Super cute. Lots in common. Got my hopes up. I did. But back to the resilience piece. I had my wallow period for a couple days, talked to friends, got it out, dated myself a little bit more in that period. And now I'm like, okay, this was a few weeks ago and I'm feeling like, all right, I think I'm ready again.
Yeah. And you know what that saves you from? That saves you from forcing a square peg into a round hole kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It saves you from doing that thing that can be dangerous in that honeymoon period where we're ignoring red flags and excusing those kind of behaviors. Mm-hmm. And it gets much harder to assert yourself if you've excused a lot of those kind of behaviors because you're showing people how you like to be treated. I work with my own therapist on this when I tend to be very easygoing. And she was asking me, I'm like, why do I get guys who don't want to take care of me? Blah, blah, blah. She's like, okay, well, what do they see in you? And I didn't think at all about, we didn't work at all on them. We just said, what do you bring to the table? And I was giving her this list, rattling it off, so proud of myself. I'm like, well, I'm super easy to date. I'm easy to be with. I don't need much, blah, blah. She's like, there it is. You just listed that you don't need to be taken care of. So you show them all the time when they oh no, I'm fine. Yeah. So I'm like, no, I'm not going to be teaching people that I don't need anything in future relationships. I'm going to be teaching people that they need to contribute to the relationship and they need to match me and meet me. And if they don't, then I'm going to say, hey, you're not really matching me or meeting me. Sorry, there's the door.
Yeah. This is the perfect segue into the next question I have so we've talked about rejection more so I'm making umbrella arms here sort of as an umbrella term that we're all
are very toned, by the way, those umbrella arms.
Gosh, they are a little bit flexy. Thank you for that.
Very fit. Woo. Yes.
I do some bicep curls and yoga, of course. I taught this morning. Yeah. So I think that's probably it. Yeah. This is, I picked up a sub.
You're so eligible. You're so dateable.
I think so. I'm actually a catch.
Yeah. The perfect person is really going to enjoy everything that you are and the whole total package. And it'll be a very special person.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I'm going to I'm so excited to do that love exercise later too. Yeah, as I'm wearing I got this on a recent trip. I'm wearing my rose quartz crystal now.
Oh, good.
Right by my heart chakra.
Bring love.
To keep, yeah, exactly. I want to spend a little bit of time on the communication pieces. We've talked about rejection. I think we opened talking about breakups and ghosting, which are probably the two most common forms of rejection you're going to experience dating. But being able to communicate through those experiences and also being able to say, no, like this is a part of dating too, is you're going to be you're going to be in this space of, ooh, actually, I'm not feeling this, not working for me, not aligned, not fulfilling. And that, oh my gosh, has been, I mean, for the longest time I dated, even when I knew it wasn't a good connection, just trying to get the other person to break up with me or
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That
Because
is
I
definitely
couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's really hard because it does feel like we have to make that decision. You know, I think we start to notice the signs that maybe we're not in the right relationship. And because we will self-abandon, we'll do things that will be rejecting ourselves. And then that over time looks like resentment.
Yeah.
Looks like frustration, looks like quick to annoyance or being like agitated with the person. And when I found myself in those places and in those stages of relationship, like especially this last one, you know, on paper or like according to everybody else, this was like, oh, we should be together. And I thought we should be together. This is great. But the actions just weren't there for me with what I wanted. Yeah. And I had to ask myself, I saw something, it must have been like some little meme on Instagram or something, but it said, and I follow a lot of therapists, so that my Instagram is designed to just feed me a bunch of great mental health stuff. And it said, what would the wisest you do? What would the kindest you do? And what would the bravest you do? And I was like, oh, I got to break up. Like that was my answer. It was like the wise me knew that I wasn't going to change somebody. I wasn't going to make somebody show up differently. The kindest me knew that I had to like take care of myself and put my own needs first. Even if there are a lot of, it would mean a lot of change for me. And the bravest me knew the same. Like I'm going to have to, I broke up with somebody when I was like still in recovery from a hysterectomy. So I was like moved when I couldn't even lift boxes. And I was like, wow, this is going to be the bravest thing that you'll ever do. And one of the hardest things. And I just listened to that. Like, what would my bravest mind, kindest mind, or wisest mind do? And that's what I did. But it was so hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it truly is. And it's something that comes with practice and experience, with self-awareness, with doing some of these practices and exercises I think we've talked about today, but being able to know that you get to say no as well in your dating life. And that's going to be part of the experience.
Yeah. Cause then you get to pick the life that you want for you.
Yes.
And you don't want to be somewhere 10 years from now being like, oh, what? Yeah. I should have, or this isn't the life for me. I can remember when I felt like that as a married person, being like, this isn't my life. I have to leave and find my life. And that feeling will be there if you are not living in line with what you ultimately want.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, you have to ask yourself and find out what it is you want.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The duality of it is saying no also means saying yes. Like it's both are happening at the same time. All right. I have one more question. This came from Flirtstagram, and that is, it's a good question. Should you actively wait on someone who's not ready to date, but right? They say it's a recent breakup or divorce, something. A relationship has ended and you meet them and you really like them, you're crushing, but they're like, not ready. I'm being honest with you.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I think that we can't make anybody do anything, but we can create the best environment for something to happen. And I think that is always going to be like taking care of yourself and doing things for yourself. And then when that person's ready, they'll come around. I don't think you should wait for anybody. You know, I think that if you have it in your head that like, I'm just going to wait around for this person, then you might miss this other amazing opportunity that is, I don't know, right over there. Our brains are these weird things that only know what they know, which sounds like weird Confucius statement, but we only know what, and this happens. I'll prove it to you. So every time you go through a breakup, does your brain, not like a Rolodex, go, what about this person? What about this random guy from high school that I heard was single, just because they know them? Your brain is pulling from the pool of the knowledge that it already has.
Yes.
What your brain does not even have the ability to comprehend is what else could be out there that is potentially way better than anything in that Rolodex. And so you have to trust that that sea is full of fish, and that there are so many people out there, because your brain is going to want to go to what is familiar. That's just what it does. It'll everybody. Please, you guys are all nodding along, going, "Yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did."
I'm nodding right now for sure.
Do that through a breakup. Do not go to the high school. Don't do it. Just stay the course.
Yeah. I agree. It's one thing to create the space for something to develop, and then it's another thing to wait for someone that may, and for questions like this, it's so tough, because there's those exceptions where a situation like this does develop into an amazing, beautiful, long-term fulfilling relationship. But more often than not, it's like you're kind of assigning this unspoken ultimatum in a sense in your head, where maybe you're giving someone a certain period of time. Like, is it 1 month, 3 months? So like you've got this unspoken ultimatum basically that is perhaps not communicated. Meanwhile, you're really developing a relationship without any type of long-term commitment, if that's what you're looking for. And then the other person, I mean, recently out of a breakup, as we've talked about today, there's just there's a lot of emotions.
Yeah, and you don't want to be pouring that energy. We all have a limited, think about it. If like you have a bank account of like 100 emotional dollars that you get to spend throughout the day. And this magical thing with these emotional dollars that I just made up is that if you spend it on yourself, your bank account refilled. You get even more. It's like earns interest. But if you spend it on somebody else, you're waiting for them to either return the favor, or you end up with low bank account, empty bank account.
Yeah.
So I look at that energy that you have and the mental energy that you put into like fantasize about what the relationship could be or whatever. Direct that towards yourself, because you do not want to be pouring that into something that has like holes in the bottom of it, or that's not going to like end up how you want. It's going to feel that much more devastating. But it does not feel devastating when we've poured that energy into us. And that is what creates that best environment for that relationship to happen in, because you want that person to meet you at your best and to like come into your life when you're, taking care of yourself the best. So it can be like a 1 + 1 is 3 situation. Yeah. Not like a 1 + 1 is 1.5, because you're half a person just imagining this future with the other person. Yeah.
I think that's,
and I read recently, I read this word, I can't remember what it is, but it's a word for the feeling that the emotions that come from us fantasizing about a relationship with somebody. And there's an actual term for it, but of course I can't remember at the time.
Is that the
one?
Yes.
Limerence?
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah. That. Very good. Thank you. Yeah. It's like we can create this. Heck, I can fall in love with like this notebook that I'm holding if I really want to. That if you just like so you got to like watch where we're doing that, and instead put those feelings towards yourself.
So good. Yeah, I totally agree. And somehow we're already these go so fast.
They sure do.
Oh my gosh. I think we covered, I know we covered a ton of ground in this episode. I'm so grateful and thankful that you, had this conversation with me and with the Flirties today. Any final words, and where can the Flirties find you? Your podcast? Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. It's been just a blast as always. I could talk to you forever. And I do want to tell people that I do have open sessions. My books are open now for new clients. So unfortunately, that's only people who are in the state of California. But if you are in the state of California and interested in telehealth therapy for you or your as a couple, I do couples or families, whatever. I am available, and you can find me at solutionsoc.com. That's solutions with an S. That's my private practice I work for. Okay. And you can always check out This Changes Everything, my therapy podcast. And I also have a podcast called Brain Candy where we talk about fun, brainy stuff. So I'm all over the place.
Yeah, you do. Please check out the website. Looking to work with Sarah, the podcast, Instagram, all will be linked. Sarah Rice, thank you so much for being on Flirtations today. Thank you so much for having
me. And good luck out there, flirties.
Good luck, flirties. You can do it. Flirties, what do you think of this episode? Big thank you to our guest for this conversation, Sarah Rice. All of her info is linked in the show notes. If you'd like to follow, work with Sarah, please check out the links for more information. And thank you for checking out this episode. I'm Benjamin, the Flirt Coach. If you enjoyed this, I'd love for you to leave a rating, a review, subscribe. Yeah, how many stars are you going to give this? 5? 5? Yeah, share it with a friend, a family member, a coworker, your cat's Instagram page. Do what you need to do to spread the flirt mission, the word of the flirt all over the world. That's what we're doing here. And with that, I think I'm going to wind it down here at Flirt Headquarters. Thank you again for listening. For more info on me, to work with me, all is in the show notes below. And until next time, until the next episode of Flirtations, happy flirting. There's always another flirt, flirty.